How are you seeing AI impact marketplaces today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're still in a very fluid state of what that impact looks like. There's kind of like the obvious impacts that seem to be not that great, which is like Rufus, like the Amazon chat assistant or equivalent, right? Every company has tried. One platform I talked to, they observe what I think most platforms have observed, which is like we launch these things and most people don't use them because we're all so conditioned to using sort of short keyword searches and search bars that I can invest the effort to build a chatbot, but nobody's really chatting with it. Now, Perplexity has kind of turned that on its head by having people like sort of use Perplexity as a shopping engine. I don't have numbers on how well they're doing based on my own anecdotal observation. I don't think that's like the primary use case of Perplexity for most people. And so there's this funny thing where like, if you just narrowly ask like injection of an LLM chatbot into a marketplace is like, what's that doing? I don't think it's really doing a lot. In a different sense, though, I think it's completely transformative. And I think the reason it's transformative has less to do with LLMs and chat interfaces narrowly, and more broadly with what's actually under the hood in this revolution in machine learning. And what is under the hood is our ability to build predictive models with far higher fidelity or lower error, to use the machine learning term, um, and in very sort of rich, complex data environments than we were able to do, pre-transformers. Okay. So why does that matter? Well, because if you look at marketplaces, I think there's two kinds, and I'm going to distinguish one class away, although I think AI's revolution has a lot to do for those marketplaces as well. So one class is like ride sharing. The Uber example is a sort of commoditized marketplace. I think there's not as much heterogeneity in the goods being sold. Let me put that aside. Let me think more about like Upwork, where there's a huge, huge heterogeneity of things being sold and transacted, right? Different types of jobs from fixed price to hourly, development to admin work, right? So historically on Upwork, the descriptions may even be written by people who don't quite know what they want. They're not even experts enough to write a description that describes really what needs to get done. On the other side, workers might not be in a position to understand how to do that translation for the employer, right? Now, we've gone overnight into a world in which suddenly these highly unstructured thoughts about what it is I'm trying to do or what I'm capable of doing can be represented in a far richer way. And I think what I'm looking forward to is, well, what is the frontier of matching, for example, based on modern language modeling? What does that look like, right? Because one of the biggest challenges we kept facing when I was at Odesk and Upwork, and I think lasts into today, is taxonomy and hierarchy. How do individuals think about what kind of job they're posting for, what kind of work they're doing, what skills they have? I think all of that becomes upended. So the definition of your market, what the goods are, which is like the core of any market, actually gets completely upended. And I think we're only at the very early stages of exploring that space. There's a different, I think, revolution on the horizon for marketplaces that look like ride sharing markets or markets that you might think are more commoditized, which is that even they are operating with these like very rich streams of temporal data. If you look at the state of the Uber network, it's a very high fidelity representation of every single car and ride in, let's say, the city of San Francisco, right? Over all time since Uber's birth. So that's a very, very rich sequence of data, time series of data. And what this same technology, transformers or modern sequence modeling technologies have opened up is the possibility of far higher fidelity forecasting and causal inference in these kinds of time series than anything we've seen before. So I'm pretty excited, I think, on that front as well, which is from a data scientific perspective that there's this push outside of of the tech industry and sort of scientific research towards what are called digital twins. Because basically, you could build a synthetic example. Think of an assembly line floor. I could have a digital twin of the assembly line if I'm Ford and use that before I build out a full assembly line to know what would its throughput be. Imagine digital twins for marketplaces that are leveraging this kind of modeling technology. I think we're, again, only in the very early days of imagining what that kind of revolution could look like. So I wanted to mention these because I think people think, AI and marketplaces, that your mind goes to Rufus. And I just want to point out, I feel like that's really not the right thing to focus on. You want to focus on sort of how is this underlying technology, what is powering it, and how is it changing the problems we used to think were fundamental for, running a marketplace.